Hey guys, how you doing today? Hey, I just wanted to make a quick video about a couple of things that I read yesterday that really just didn't sit very well with me. First off, I read this, it was like an open letter from Michael Brown to Katy Perry, and it was talking about how, you know, she lives in darkness and she doesn't have the Lord in her life and all of this stuff, and I'm reading this and it says, like, towards the end, it's telling her, Katie, wouldn't it be better to just have the gift of God in your life and all of this stuff? And okay, although I agree with that, here's the problem with it. This is the fundamental problem with Christianity right now, okay? Because why should Katy Perry give up her fortune and fame to serve God when, by your own standards, she doesn't have to? This is the problem, you guys. They're not understanding this once saved, always saved doctrine. Okay, so I think it was Steve Berkson said he had a conversation with a Baptist pastor, and he asked him to show him in the Bible where it said that once you're saved, you're always saved, and that you cannot be taken away, you cannot leave. You can't be plucked away, but you can definitely leave from God's side. And the Baptist preacher said, well, I can't do it in that book. And he said, well, here's a King James, do it in this one. But he wouldn't do it. And he asked him, he says, what do you call somebody who accepted Christ and is now living outside of the terms of the Bible? And he said, well, we call that person a backslider. And he said, well, if you're in a backslidden state, can you still go to heaven? And the pastor said emphatically, yes, that you can still go to heaven. Okay, that is my whole point, okay? So, and this was actually what I was thinking of when I was sitting in church too. So you're telling me that I don't have to do anything. I don't have to earn my salvation. I don't have to do any works. I don't have to prove that I'm set apart. I can live however I want and I'm still saved by grace? Well, what am I sitting here for? That was my whole thing. But fortunately for me, I was desiring a relationship with God, which is why I continued on after I left the church. A lot of people would just stop right there. Oh, I'm saved by grace, so all I have to do is believe. Okay, I can do that. Nothing is required of me. No change in my life is needed. And I can just be saved by the grace that I was extended. Great! So what incentive does anybody have to sit in a church with a bunch of Judge Judy people? Because that's what you find at church. You find a lot of judgmental people, okay? You find a lot of people in the church who love on each other while they're in the church, but the minute they are away from the person they're loving on, they're telling you that person's life story, okay? And of course, there's judgment involved. So that's what I see when I go to the church. I'm sure a lot of you who have left the churches saw the same thing, which is why you left the church. Okay, that is prominent there. And it's not that I don't think that we need to hold each other accountable. I do think that we need to hold each other accountable, but I don't think that we need to hold each other accountable by telling everybody a person's life story. You can hold somebody accountable by simply conversing with them and making corrections while you're talking to them. Anyways, that was the first story that kind of stabbed me in the side. Katy Perry has no reason to walk away from her riches and fame. Neither does Selena Gomez, who is now claiming to be a Christian. Neither does, what's his name, Justin Bieber, who is now claiming to be a Christian. They don't have to give up their fame and fortune because the church is telling them that nothing is expected of them. And I'm going to prove it right now. Because the second story I saw, which really bothered me, was the story of Korn's guitarist Brian Head Welsh, and I'm just going to call him Brian Welsh because I've never liked his name Head. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sure it makes sense in his head somewhere, but no pun intended. But it doesn't make sense to me, so I'm going to call him Brian Welsh. Okay, so Brian Welsh has been saved for quite a few years, and in fact, Brian Welsh at one point did an altar call with my Hyper Grace pastor, Benny Perez. Okay, so now I have seen Brian Welsh scurrying around my church as well, talking with the youth pastor at my church. Okay, and I'm sure that Brian Welsh has had his own, I don't know Brian Welsh's heart, but I will use my discernment and judge this story about Brian Welsh and hold him accountable for his own words. Okay, so basically it was a video clip of an older minister, pastor, whatever title he wants to claim, basically sucking up to Brian Welsh and forgiving the fact that Brian Welsh is running around considering himself to be saved, and yet Brian Welsh has not removed himself from his lifestyle at all. Okay? And what I mean by that is that Brian Welsh is still performing in a band that glorifies death. And please don't misunderstand me. I absolutely loved Korn. They were one of my top 3 bands that I listened to back in the day. Loved this band. So I do know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about Korn's lyrics and their content. Okay? This is a band whose lyrics glorify death. Their lyrics glorify violence and mistreatment of people in general. And there's a lot of sexual content in their music. What business does light have with dark? That's the first thing that came to my mind. Okay, so perfect example. As I grew in my relationship with God, certain words, certain topics, certain music became intolerable to me. Not to the fact where I'm like screaming and yelling, telling somebody to turn off their music, but that when I would hear certain content, my skin would crawl. I would just, like my husband still to this day is struggling with getting over cursing. You know, we come from that background. We come from a metalhead background. We come from a bar background. We did it all, okay? So every other word out of my husband's mouth is the F word when he gets excited or upset about something. And for me, it's very hard to hear that. I have to stop him and say, can we just try and tell the story without all the colorful words, please? Because it upsets me. It makes me uneasy. Okay? I can't watch comics anymore who are like that, where every other word is filthy or nasty that comes out of their mouths. I can't listen to music anymore. Mother effer this, mother effer that. I can't listen to it. And the sad part is, I like the music more than the lyrics. And I wish I could just listen to the music, but that's not possible. I have to take the bad with the good. Okay, so I don't listen to it at all. All right, so this older preacher is sucking up to Brian Welsh, telling him and excusing the fact that he has not. It wasn't even about excusing the fact that he hasn't removed himself. It was like, oh, well, if you were a missionary, then I could see where we were holding you up to a high. No, you're a Christian. You should be held up to a higher standard already. Okay? So and you should be set apart. And Brian's response to this guy who asked him, how do you explain the fact that you're still taking part in this show? This show is not a Christian show. It is not godly in any way. And how do you explain still being a part of that? And Brian's answer was, these are our people. This is our tribe. These are God's people. And just on and on and on, he's talking about how, God actually sent him back there, that he had a 30-day battle, sort of a Jacob battle with God in his home for 30 days. Sounds more like a crazed drug binge to me. I'm not judging. I swear I'm not judging, but that just came out. I'm so sorry. Okay, so anyway, he had this 30-day challenge with Yahweh where he claims that the God of the universe, who called him out of darkness to save him, his wretched butt, is going to send him back into the cesspool to evangelize? No. To pass out Bibles? No. To ever mention him at any point in his show? No. No. This Yahweh apparently called him back into the darkness to love on people. This Yahweh called him back into the darkness to hang out and rock out with his tribe. Let me tell you something, Brian Welsh. You are of a new tribe now, if you are a sincere Christian. Those are not your people anymore. And that does not mean that you can't love them and you can't pray for them. But the reality is, Yahweh would never call you back into that lifestyle. Ever. He moved heaven and earth to call you out of that lifestyle. And now you're claiming that he is bringing you back into that lifestyle with no plan of restoration for those people. So you're looking at those people out there, totally, most of them demon possessed, with the devil horns and the whole 9 yards, and the rampant drug abuse and the alcoholism and the violence and all of that stuff that takes place in a corn audience. You're looking at those people and you're saying, those are God's people. Those are my tribe. No, they're not. They are not God's people until they proclaim God as the master of their lives. They are not God's people. They are of a pagan and heathen origin. And until God calls them and receives them, you being there is not helping them. And let me tell you another thing, Brian Welsh. You're not loving on anybody by allowing people to stay dead in their sin and wickedness. You're not helping them. You're not loving on them. And in fact, if you did love them, you would be doing everything in your power to save them. You would be presenting the gospel to them, and not this wishy-washy, I'm a Christian, I don't judge you. Those were his exact words. I'm a Christian, I don't judge you. It's not your job to judge them. It's your job to have discernment and keep your distance from them. Okay? If they're the pagan, I've said this so many times, the pagan and the heathen are going to do what the pagan and the heathen do. As set apart people, we are called out of that and not to be a part of it. Okay? Even people who go on missions to places like this, who do evangelize and spread the gospel, undergo immense spiritual attacks for doing so. Okay? You're not a threat to the devil by standing up there and saying you're good. Let me tell you something. Even the demons believe. And they have enough sense to shudder. You have no fear of the Lord, which tells me you are not serving the right God. And sadly, Brian Welsh, you are serving a false Christ. You are serving a God that you have created in your mind. A God who allows room for your sin, a God who allows room for the sin around you, and a God who doesn't care enough about you to bring you out of the filth of the gutter and wash your robe in white. Okay, let me tell you something. You are playing with fire, literally. And if you care about yourself, about your daughter, about the people around you, then you would start exhibiting some fear of the Lord, and you would start to take this walk a little bit more seriously. Listen, I know that people say this all the time. Oh, you can accept Christ and stay who you are. That is an impossible feat if you're actually following Yahweh. Okay? Because his very Torah that you should be following is exactly what changes you into him. Okay? You don't get to stay the same person. Let me tell you something. What sets you apart? Okay? You say, oh, I'm loving my neighbor, I'm loving myself, I'm loving the Lord. Okay, what sets you apart from a Buddhist? What sets you apart from a Hindu? What sets you apart from an atheist? Absolutely nothing. If that's your mindset, absolutely nothing is setting you apart. You're just part of the mix. And you're supposed to be a set apart people. What sets us apart? Following Yahweh's standards, following his commands, guarding his Torah is what sets us apart. Okay? There is nothing about you. You think your Jesus tattoo on your fingers is going to make me believe you're a Christian? No, baby. No. I'm watching your fruit. I'm watching what you do. And when you say things like you said in this little video snippet I saw, you are mocking God. You are mocking what Jesus did for you on the cross. You are mocking the blood that was spilled for you. Your sheer existence is mocking what Yeshua did for you. It's so sad to watch this. And the worst part about it is Christians are all enamored of him. Oh, it's the dude from Korn. He's a Christian now. He might be a Christian, but he ain't a follower of Yah. He ain't a set apart person. And there is a difference. I'm telling you, I let my kids watch that video and I was like, do you see anything wrong with that? And my daughter looked at me and she goes, yeah, that don't seem right. Well, it goes beyond it don't seem right. And I know she didn't see a lot of it because she's still only 15 years old. So, you know, I had to sit down and explain to her, okay, this is everything that a normal person wouldn't even pick up on. They wouldn't even pick up on it. See, because we've created this touchy-feely God where everything's all about how we feel and everything's all about our feelings and all of this nonsense. And it's not like that, you guys. That is not the situation at all. So anyways, question, who are you serving today? And you know, make the necessary corrections in your life. You guys, you're running out of time. I love you all, and I'll talk to you next time. Have a blessed day.